mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
So the number one show of 2023 was called Robots in My Head, and it featured this incredible guy named John Nelson, family man, young kids, ad executive, just a brilliant guy, diagnosed with treatment-resistant major depressive disorder, wanted to kill himself every day, and this was new to me, thankfully, but he came to the studio, and we just had this incredibly frank conversation. The good news is he was given some deep brain stimulation treatments. There's literally robots in his head that are controlled by some electromagnetic thing, like an Atari joystick, maybe, I don't know. But it cured him. It's like you turned the switch on and his symptoms went away. He is no longer suicidal. He wants to live. He enjoys emotions and he feels things. And it changed my world to understand this. We become best friends. And sure enough, he's back. He came in for part 2 to share what he's up to chime in on more mental health issues. He's starting this wonderful new initiative called Pulverize the Stigma, which you can learn about. And he's just awesome. You're going to love the show. So let's get started. John Nelson back in the house.
What's up, my man? It's great
How you
to be
doing?
here. Doing awesome. It's wonderful to be here.
Been a minute.
It's been a minute.
For the listener, because I've won. It's my dad. John was on the show about a year ago or so, and it was the number one show of the year.
It's awesome.
Called Robots in My Head. You could look it up. We'll put it in the show notes. And back in action. Hey, Jen.
Hi.
Chief of Staff Jen. On the air.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good.
This is your second show with me.
Yeah, I'm
You prepared?
No, but getting there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I've asked Jen. She's so beautifully soft spoken with her British Indian accent that my favorite, better than Australia, by the way, and Scotland.
Absolutely.
Just my favorite accent in the world. And she'd say, "What accent? I have the accent." Right?
Jen is crushing it. That's for sure.
And I want to thank you, John, for introducing her to my life. She's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
So happy you guys are together.
Just changed my world.
It's awesome. It's
So,
awesome.
all right. Gratitude's over. I hate you.
But now we're back.
We're just back. So again, for the listener or the whole team, whoever's listening to that extent, John's one of my heroes for all the wrong reasons. Because you entered this crazy genetic club predisposition, and it was the first show I ever done about suicide.
Yep.
What do I know about this? Thankfully, I know nothing about this. I walked into another part of the pool, and I learned the similarities and the differences. And it was just so refreshing, again, in the kind of the worst way, to understand from that perspective just how grateful I am in the sense, but how completely ostracized and stigmatized that world is. And I'll wrap that thought up with, mental health is almost too much today. It's too big of a circus tent to kind of mean anything to anyone, at least for me. I want to talk about that because we're children of the 80s when we ate dirt and we're just told to walk it off.
Yep.
So let's just recap your story.
Yeah.
It's insanity, but it's amazing.
So the short version of my story is about 10 years ago, started getting very sick. Didn't know what was going on. My life was good. I had the 2 kids at the time, my wife, my job was cruising. Then I just started losing self-confidence. My self-esteem started getting really low. I went to the physician and they told me that I had major depressive disorder, which made no sense to me, right? No, what are you talking about? I don't
Is
get
there a
it.
minor depressive disorder?
So it's a great question. There's not. But looking it up, I started looking it up and I was like, I have this, but I knew nothing about it, right? And so I start the treatment journey, which typically ends up starting through your primary care office, which was exactly like me. Go to my first, my nurse practitioner, started my first antidepressant. And, the entire time I'm going through this decade battle, I did over 10 different antidepressants. I did psychedelics, 2 stays in a residential treatment facility, 3 partial hospitalizations, 3 intensive outpatient programs. I did 36 sessions of transcranial magnetic stimulation and 12 sessions of electroconvulsive therapy.
Those are some powerful syllables.
Yes. Yep. So the short version is everything that you can imagine to treat depression, I did, and none of it worked. And so the only thing that consistently happened through the whole process was I got sicker every day. Every single day I got sicker.
What did you mean by sicker? Let's qualify that.
Every day, the suicidal thoughts got just more pervasive all the time. I started feeling the depression in every single cell of my body. And so when you think about the feeling of a fever or a cold, right? Really bad cold where you get the chills, everywhere in your body, that physical sensation, I had that, but I had that with death. It was a feeling of death going through my body. So literally I could feel it in my fingertips, death and dread constantly, and just constant suicidal ideation. So, I mean, it was as pervasive to me as breathing. It actually didn't even really mess with me too much. It was just part of my life. Like I just wanted to die. And so when you're constantly living a life where you just feel like dying, it's about as abysmal as it gets. When you think about your daily existence, you wake up every morning and you're pissed off you woke up. And then you have to go through the day just literally hoping to get back to bed and hope you die. Like that's what this disease is. And so I finally get into a clinical trial because I was so severe. And that clinical trial was for brain surgery, Mount Sinai Hospital here in New York City. They did the surgery, 8-hour surgery, wake me up halfway through. My biggest challenge going into it would people would say, well, are you getting brain surgery? Are you scared? Not at all. Like I was psyched. Like I want to die, right? So the worst case scenario, this thing kills me. Sweet. Now I can get life insurance for my family. I can't get it if I die by suicide because most plans don't have that way, right? Another angle on how mental illness is such a challenging disease to have. And so I go through the surgery, I wake up, they turn on the device. And so I have 23 million electrical pulses per day going to my brain, 2 specific locations. And from the moment they turned it on until now, I've been in remission from depression. I mean, all that this has taught me is I have an electrical deficiency in my body. That's all it is. I'm proof that this is a brain disease. A circuit is off in my brain. That is all that is wrong with me. And so I have 2 thoughts when I found this out. My first thought is I knew something was wrong with me. Right? Oh my God, you can't see this disease, right? It's not, and you're so stigmatized that you're just so confused the whole time. And my first thought was, oh my God, I was right. Something was wrong with me. And my second thought was, I'm pissed off, like beyond pissed off that I had to go through this. Millions of people have to go through this that are needlessly suffering and dying purely because society is ignorant. And society, and I will say it is absolutely stupid in how they are handling this. Their thought process is killing people and making them suffer, and that's completely unjust. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I can get people's attention so that we can save some lives.
So I'm going to say this sentence on purpose, and I want your reaction because it's always like, can't you just be happy? Mm-hmm. Talk about that. How many times was that told to you?
It's a fantastic line. And so here's my answer to you. My answer to you is 6 weeks after surgery. It took my wife 6 months to know that I was okay. She was so scared, right? Everything was like, when is this going to stop? Like, this is too good to be true, right? And so my answer to your question is this. So 6 weeks after surgery, I wake up and I didn't feel good. I felt sad and I plummeted immediately that day. My wife called me. I had to go to a conference at school for our kid. I was like, I can't make it. I could make it, but I wanted to stay at home and I wanted to sleep. I overate. I did anything I could to escape, to not feel the feeling, right? And this is exactly what the behavior teaches you when you're in it. I was in it for so long. I just was like, oh my God, is post-traumatic stress disorder, just feeling that feeling. And my clinical team just said, listen, we'll talk to you on Monday. And we sat down on Monday, we talked, and they're like, this is called distress tolerance. Like, we need to teach you again, John, how to deal with the normal human emotion of sadness. And so it was the aha moment for me. It was like, okay, this makes sense. I can understand why people are confused, right? Like, I've been sad before, get over it. You're talking about a human emotion. So guess what? You're going to go through anger, happiness, sadness. Say you wake up and you're sad in the morning, and then you're going out on a hike with your great friend and you're happy, right? Like, that's the cycle of life. You cycle through emotions. And so that was a big epiphany for me because I didn't go into the surgery thinking that I'd be okay, right? Now I'm okay. And I definitely didn't go into the surgery thinking that I have to live with something that I'm literally causing me trauma.
Let me interrupt you. Did anyone know in advance that once you were I won't say cured, but once this disease was managed, that you'd be feeling again for the first time? Did they know this was going to happen to you?
So it's such a great question. So Dr. Mayberg said to me, Dr. Mayberg
being?
Dr. Mayberg is the lead investigator of my clinical trial. She's, in my opinion, the best neurologist in the planet, definitely within mental illness. And she's been studying this for 30 years and is just an absolutely incredible person.
And she was on our show.
She was.
Robots in My Head.
She was, and she rocked it. And she told me, John, you have to rehab your brain. And I didn't understand what that meant. You know, I was like, what are you talking about? Like in my head, I was like, Doc, like I'm good. Like I'm not sick anymore, right? And then when this happened, I actually told them. I told the clinical team. I said, so you guys said rehab your brain, which is so spot on, and it's true. But like, give this as an example, because my analogy is if you have binge eating disorder, you still have to be around food. Right? If you're a sex addict, you still are going to most likely be around sex during your life, right? So I didn't think that I'd have that association. I have that association now because whenever I'm sad, I'm traumatized. Like yes, I've learned the tools to help me with that, but every single time I do get sad, it absolutely triggers me. And so that's my answer to your question is, yeah, absolutely. I've gotten over being happy, being over sad, because those are emotions. The disease of depression in its most simplistic form to the listeners out there is that human emotion of 0 is I'm not that sad and 10 is death. That human emotion of sadness, let's say it's about a 3 out of 10, right? The disease of depression is a 5 to a 10, 10 being death again, and it never leaves your body. It's in there constantly, and it just gets worse. I mean, that's what treatment-resistant depression is you keep trying to fix it, nothing works, and you just get sicker and sicker. And so that is the disease, and that is one of the biggest challenges is, like you said, stigma's out there. One of the reasons stigma is out there is because of the difference between the emotion and the disease.
It doesn't sound like an intentional sort of intolerance. And maybe I'm going to do apples to apples in a sense with cancer, which is, but you're fine, right? Right? It's a physical thing in your body. Sometimes people don't look sick. It's still like, I've been through worse and it's competition, but it's misunderstood for the reasons that I would forgive. Right? If you haven't gone through it, how would you relate to it? Is that fair?
It is fair. And that's one of the reasons I like to do education is I like to give everybody an opportunity to understand why they're wrong with their general thinking, or they haven't even thought about it, right? So like, let me give you an update on the state of the state. Like, this is the current environment that we have, and this is why it is deadly, and this is why it's a challenge and why we have to fix it. So I think there's multiple reasons. One is how as a country we have handled mental illness, right? 50, 60 years ago, throw them in the institution, right? You had shock therapy without anesthesia. I mean, so we have all of these very, let's throw them away. These are folks in society that need to go somewhere else, right? Get them away from us. So our older generation, it is extremely stigmatized, right? It gets less stigmatized as you go down, but that's an issue. And then think about the naming convention, right? So you've never felt cancered before, but you felt depressed before, right? That's the depression is the name of the frickin' disease, brain disease, right? So yeah, there's an association there that causes confusion. But in the end of the day, like the simplest thing with me is when you look at this disease that nobody has asked for, just like every other disease, it's not accepted by society. When it's not an acceptable disease by society, you're judged, labeled, blamed, and shamed for something you didn't ask for that in itself is wrecking your brain and your mind. And so just adding fuel to the fire, like it doesn't make any sense to me. And so from your cancer standpoint, let me explain to you the stupidity of how we handle this from a society standpoint is, could you imagine a person in a chemotherapy chair just at the kind of end stage of their fight, and you have two people behind them just talking trash, right? What do you have to have cancer for? Snap out of it. Dude, like, you got a great life. You got a great family. Like, what the hell, dude? Like, that would be completely unacceptable. You'd be the worst person in the world, right? That's all we get. That's the point of entry for mental illness. Right. 100% the point of entry. So it's not acceptable, would be the most unacceptable thing in the world for most disease states, but it's all we get. And so that is why everybody dies. That is why everybody suffers. People wait. Are you ready for this? People wait 10 years. 10 years. Most people wait 10 years before they seek treatment for depression. Can you imagine that with any other disease? But that's the society has created an environment that people can't go out and get help. They don't feel comfortable doing it because they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be labeled. They don't want to be ostracized. That is making millions of people needlessly suffer. It's completely ridiculous and it needs to stop.
Well, let me pivot to Jen for a sec. We were talking before the show about cancer in India and how that's like a whisper campaign, undiscussed. You can't talk about it. I would imagine this is a level worse than that in that culture. No one talks about this. Is that correct?
Things are changing now. That was how it was. I mean, I've never talked about this before, but I've also had my own issues with mental health.
I thought you were perfect. Come on.
I've also had my own issues with mental health, where I have dealt with multiple medications. I've sought help. My parents, before me, probably never even knew what depression was. Maybe you hear about it in a movie, you read about it somewhere. But when they came to know, when I was clinically diagnosed with depression and chronic anxiety, they didn't know what it was. But they were probably one of the, I don't know anybody else who must have dealt it in a way that they did, but they were very, very supportive. Things are changing is what I'm trying to say.
So we're talking US based, and it's horrible here. It's worse elsewhere.
Absolutely.
So we've work to do here, but then we have to figure out what the how we disseminate to other cultures.
I want to smack folks around here first, and then we'll get everybody in line and keep going. I mean, let's make this as big as we can.
All right. Question before the break.
Yep.
I remember from the last show that what you went through was approved by the FDA, but people aren't aware of it. Is that still true?
Yeah. So it's in phase 3 clinical trials right now with Abbott. Abbott has just started them actually this quarter. And so they're taking it through to hopefully get FDA approved.
Okay.
And that's in the process of happening.
Right. Because this is one of those things where how could you not know this is an option for you? Mm-hmm. And you stumbled upon it by accident?
Correct.
How was the accident? Like, where was that serendipity moment for you?
So the accident was caregivers. You know, I'm in my second rehab facility, and my parents, my father and my wife, are doing research to be like, what else is there out there for John? And they stumbled across the clinical trial site, and they were like, I think John's severe enough to get in it. And I had my initial interview with them was just probably the most exciting day I had in years, just to see if I had the opportunity to get in. And it was just an incredible moment. And then to ultimately be accepted and have my life saved, that just fuels me even more. I have the ability now with this bonus life to do something with it. So let's go.
So if they flip the little switch off, are you suicidal again?
Another phenomenal question. So part of this trial is after 6 months, they turn it off for a week. And I was freaked, right? So after I had that first sad bout, I spent from 6 weeks into the surgery until 6 months into the surgery. Every single week, I had 30 minutes with a psychologist, 30 minutes with a psychiatrist. And I spent the most of the time talking about what's going to happen when they turn it off. Because let me tell you, when you feel like dying every day and then you don't, it's a lot more fun when you don't feel like dying every day, right? So I didn't want to feel it again, right? And I was freaked. And, the doctor told me when they turned it off, they said, you either will not feel anything or you'll feel it in about 4 or 5 days. And the day they turned it off, I had a business meeting with somebody. I met with that person a week later. They had to stop the meeting because of how different I looked,
wow.
how different my voice was, my skin complexion changes, my face droops. I was physically ravaged with the disease again. I did not mess with my mind in regards to suicidal ideation, but I was sleeping 16 hours a day. I was right back in it. I was escaping. It's the worst feeling ever. And so it took me about 3 weeks after they turned it back on to get back to baseline. But I have to charge this thing every 2 or 3 days. So if things get busy in life, right, and I'm going and I forget to charge, I mean, obviously my goal is never to do that. But, I have to make sure this thing is charged up because it's constantly pumping electricity. So it's not like a heart pacemaker where it just bolts when it needs it. This is going all the time. And so that's kind of the process.
On that note, on that happy note, let's take a break. So maybe this is a loaded question, but are there 2 or 3 very specific issues in America with mental health that we can discuss?
Absolutely. So the number one issue, the number one cause, the number one thing that we need to fix and put every single dollar and piece of effort behind is the stigma. The stigma of mental illness is absolutely what causes all of the needless suffering and death. I am the voice. I feel that I can be a voice after coming through this for the millions of people who are sitting at home who are literally just wanting to die, right? They're sitting at home. They're not talking about this. They're struggling. They're suffering because of that stigma. It's completely ridiculous. And I'll do everything I can to make sure that those people have a voice and that we can end that so that they can seek that treatment earlier. Because wouldn't it be great if you could get people in to get treatment right when they started getting sick as opposed to 10 years? Be pretty awesome, right? It'd be a lot easier to treat that way too. The second issue is insurance is horrific. The insurance industry, how they treat mental illness and mental health is abysmal. I am an absolute privileged person. I was able to go through this and come out on the other end. I'm significantly in financial debt. And let me tell you how incredibly difficult it is to heal your mind when you're financially ruining your family. So that's the other environment that I've created. So stigma, insurance. Third is government. So now let's look at the government. My clinical treatment was funded by the National Institute of Health Brain Initiative. So they provide grants to phenomenal, groundbreaking research so that they can come up with cures for these maniacal diseases like MDD, major depressive disorder, and fix them. And so what Congress decided to do in 2024 was cut the budget for the NIH Brain Initiative by 40%. So they decided to take away 40% of the budget to invest in new research. So they can't do that now. They can only extend the current programs that they have already given money for. So the government now is telling us that it's not a priority. I don't know if there's anything that is more of a priority than a public health crisis of mental illness, but now the government has decided that we can't continue to invest in research. Awesome. And then the fourth thing that is absolutely still blows my mind is I'm going to ask you two awesome people a question. The gold standard treatment for major depressive disorder, severe depression, the gold standard treatment for severe depression.
Wait, explain the difference.
Yeah.
MDD is something you can't control. It's congenital or it's inherited or
so the short version is it's just more of a the nomenclature, like the kind of simplified way to say it is severe depression, right? The more clinical term is major
depression plus.
Yeah, depression. Yes, exactly. So the gold standard treatment for severe depression is electroconvulsive therapy, shock therapy. So first off,
they still do that?
So first, it's the gold standard treatment. So not only do you have a stigmatized disease that you didn't ask for, now you have a stigmatized treatment that you obviously have to take, right? So I had to do it 12 times. So 12 times, I'm literally have to be driven to this facility, taken in under anesthesia. 2022, I was under anesthesia 15 times. Like that's
like Michael Jackson level shit.
That's what severe depression looks like, because this is how we're treated and this is how it's treated in this freaking country. So my question for you is this, or my statement for you is this. First off, it did nothing for me, like everything else did. And the only thing it did for me was ruin my memory. I mean, I literally have significant memory loss from that time. So here's my question for you guys. How old is the gold standard treatment for what, in my opinion, is the biggest public health crisis in the globe? The number one cause of disability in the globe is depression, by the way. So
I'm going to say older than the lobotomy.
What do you think, Jennifer?
About 25 years.
All right. So it is older than the first McDonald's restaurant.
Oh my God.
It was developed 15 years after Genesis and women were allowed to vote in this country. So it's 90 years old. That's what we're using for technology to treat an absolute prolific, horrific disease that is out there. We have to advance technology big time. And we're in the process of doing that, which is great, but it needs to happen sooner than later.
Oh, God. All right. So I'm of the sort of the steadfast belief that the only thing that changes anything is advocacy, but advocacy without action is nothing. And action means policy. Where's policy in this? Who's rallying for what bills in what state houses to do what? Is that existing right now, or are you going to lead it?
So it's a fantastic question. So I have part of the group that I'm on called One Mind. One Mind is a fantastic not-for-profit organization that is really, really, really steering everything they're doing. It's all about brain health and science, and it's incredible, and they're huge in mental illness. And they're basing everything around lived experience. And so lived experience is kind of their guiding principle right now. And so there's 3 of us that are essentially lived experience council members. So my answer to you is there's a gentleman named Carlos Laray, who's absolutely incredible human being. And he is the big public policy guy. He's a nurse practitioner, psychiatrist, nurse practitioner. He just finished his law degree, is doing a clerkship out in San Diego, and he's going to be going to DC, and public policy is his big aspect, his big side. So he's the dude for that answer. The short perspective is we got great people on it. I'm out here to poke society in the face.
So we got to get him on the show.
Yes. He's going to be the one to give you a real answer. I know that a lot of good stuff is going on, but not my expertise.
Again, just my experience in policy was that most things get done better at the state level.
Yeah.
And it just takes the right amount of state citizens to go here and do this. Not that simple, of course, but you can literally change an entire state's policy on X, Y, and Z in a year or two versus anything federal. Obamacare, well, now it's ACA because we stopped that stigma.
Yeah.
It's ACA is the law of the land. Took a decade.
Wow.
It took a decade. And it was largely led by Gen Xers because we had the most to lose based on pre-existing condition.
Well, here's what I love about what you said is my goal in all of this, or my role in all of this, is to create an environment that needs that sense of urgency. And that's what I plan on doing with this new campaign that I've started with Pulverize the Stigma, is I want to make this so top of mind for everybody that they have to take action. And my entire goal with this Pulverize the Stigma is exactly that. It's to educate folks, to make them understand that their behavior and their actions are absolutely killing people. And so if you outwardly promote the stigma mental illness after you've heard what I'm saying in regards to this is a brain disease that nobody has asked for, right? This is not something that anybody has asked for. And the thought process and the judgment and the ostracizing and the labeling is killing people. And so if you promote it and you say it, if you promote it and you think it inside, you are directly responsible for being an accomplice to murder. 100%. You are directly responsible for deaths. And so the reason that I want to approach it this way is we've had multiple stigma campaigns to date. They're all great because they're trying it. They're too passive. So I'm going to tell you exactly how it is. You are directly responsible for killing people because of your ignorance.
So let's talk about the grayscale of mental illness, because it isn't all this. Mm-hmm. People are anxious, they're depressed, they have general sadness, there's bad things happening. Is that just societally induced or self-induced? I really want to understand. Educate me.
Yep.
My brain's just fucked up from cancer 25 years ago. Yep. But thankfully, I don't consider myself depressed. And again, that's another word that could be completely misconstrued.
For sure. So there's biological components, which it is in my family. And so there's that aspect of it. There's the genes. And then there's the environment. So the environment absolutely does play a role in it. And so it's a mixture of both. For me, I was very hit with the kind of the biology aspect of it. But for sure, there's different aspects within the environment that do bring me up or down. But that does impact the majority of folks who are sick.
Has this always been the case proportionally to population, or is it worse now because society is just worse?
I think it's worse now. One of the main reasons is how completely different our society is and how addicted we all are to our phones and media consumption and social media. I mean, there's so much data and studies around that, but that absolutely plays a major role. And not having the human connection that we used to have, or that used to be kind of standard, I think is playing a big role in that. And you have the loneliness aspect going on. All of that is driven by COVID. Obviously didn't help any of that, but then you add in the excessive use of technology, and they're just recipes for overall disaster in that space.
I'm going to botch this, and if I could find it, I'll put it in the show notes. But there was an article, I don't remember when, maybe it was in The Economist, called the Anthropology of Tribalism, and how that was what the glue was that connected people together before the digital age.
Yeah.
And we kind of died of malaria, but it's an over-under at that point. Mm-hmm. Now, tribalism isn't about being this color or this religion. It's about just having a shared experience with your fellow species in that sense. And we have completely lost that. Not entirely, of course. There are pockets. My son goes out every day after high school and hangs out with like 8 people every day, right? With their phones not even there at all. And I like that. That reminds me of the 80s. ET bicycles and shit like that.
There was a recent podcast with the Surgeon General talking about social media. And one of the lines that he said that really stuck with me was school, I believe it was in Indiana, banned cell phones during the day. And he walked into the cafeteria and the kids were talking. Mm-hmm. The hallways, there was talking in the hallways. That didn't exist before.
No.
Right. And when you look at, you go into a doctor's office, you go to the airport, right? You look at the gate when everybody's there, everybody, including me, is just sitting there staring at your phone. Right. And so that's just a completely different planet and world. And I think it sucks a lot of people down in regards to their mind.
Right. If there's a study, I'd love to know if return to work has sort of reestablished that. Obviously, yes, pandemic is its own universe of content and whatever, but is there any restorative information that we've seen that's returned people to that way it kind of used to be?
Well, I think if anything, for me, what I heard and what I learned was try to find moments of joy. Right? Try to find moments of joy, try to find your passion, try to embrace yourself and put yourself in those environments. And so when anybody does that, I've seen nothing but positive results. And I think that's what it is. I was talking to a friend yesterday. She's been struggling for a long, long time. And she's just started to invest a lot of her time into art. She has even created something that she sells at a local fair, right? Art that she does. And she's like, I feel so passionate about it. And it's getting to the ability to be able to find that passion and do it and realize how important it is. Another great friend of mine was in a job that she didn't like for a long time. And she recently started it, also has some, minor depressions that she deals with. And it's changed her life, right? It's, oh my God, I have more purpose now. I really enjoy what I do. Like this is it's 40 to 50 to 60 hours of your week, right? Yeah. Like jobs are a huge thing. And well, there's a stat that I read that is just beautiful. And it's one of the reasons that I'm alive is it's a empathetic and kind manager about your mental illness, your mental health is 70% more effective than therapy and medication combined. It's as equal as importance as the help or as the support and love from your partner or caregiver. Like how wild is that? So when you think about the impact that we can have from a work standpoint, from a workplace standpoint, from a manager standpoint, from a humanity standpoint, it's incredible. And that's what frustrates me about all of this is we have this massive, massive crisis that is going on and it costs nothing to fix it. It literally costs no dollars to fix this. And so you aren't bringing in billions of dollars of consultant fees to figure out this problem. All that we need to do as a society is treat mental illness like every other disease is treated. So when you tell somebody, when I would have the balls to tell somebody I was suffering from severe depression, they would just stare at me. They wouldn't say anything. And so that makes me feel more awkward. That makes me never want to talk about it. That makes me want to go home and drink more and sleep more and just do more escaping behavior, right? So if we as a society, when somebody tells you that they are suffering from mental illness, all you need to do is do exactly what you would do with your friend who told you they had breast cancer, which is horrific, right? I'm so sorry. I love you so much. We're here to support you, right? You're showing empathy. You're literally being an empathetic human being. You're acknowledging that the pain and suffering that they're going through and their family are going through. So you show empathy and then you be kind. Just like you do with your great friends who unfortunately succumbed, who have been diagnosed with cancer. Like that's what's so beautiful. I love how it's treated. I love how it's handled. I know it wasn't like that when you first started your advocacy. That's why it's so beautiful to see, right? When our neighbor next door, our neighbor up the street, people have lined up with meals and who's taking her wares, and this is what we're doing, and the whole neighborhood's rallying around them. Like that's exactly what this should be like. And again, it's the exact opposite for mental illness. And so if we can show empathy and if we can just do kind behavior towards people, you're going to save millions of lives. And when I say kindness, I mean being proactively kind. I had my neighbor, one day I'll never forget, I came home and he had mowed my lawn. Like, do you know how amazing that made me feel? Like mowing a lawn, first off, is like a triathlon when you're suffering from in the depths of hell from depression. And I come home and it's just proactively done. I'll never forget that feeling ever.
So let's wrap, coming full circle to what you started in the beginning, which is know your body. How does one self-actualize? At what point does the spectrum get to you want to take yourself seriously. You're not self-diagnosing and I'm just sad. Is there a trigger? Is there a moment? Help me understand when it becomes something. Because in cancer, you could very easily be told, and probably this is there, or just get over it. It's nothing. You're too young for this, whatever it is. But eventually there's a tumor that you can't ignore. What is that? Does that correlate in any way?
How often do you go to your dentist every year?
Twice a year.
How often do you get a physical?
Twice a year.
Okay. So that's something that's just routine in your life, right? And so every single person should be doing that for their brain. The most complex computer in the entire world is your brain, literally. Why do we stigmatize therapy? Every single person should be seeing a therapist, preventatively talking to them. I mean, this should be something that's part of everybody's life. So that's your answer. The answer is every single person should be meeting with a therapist and talking to them and talking about their brain and talking about their thoughts and talking about life. Like that's what this is all about. And as you're doing that, and that's part of your life and part of your existence, you won't even need to have that aspect that you just asked for. It's going to come up naturally in these conversations, and you're going to be able to get help quicker, sooner, and you're going to be able to normalize this. And so that's my answer to you is to show you how stigmatized it is. I can't even tell somebody I'm seeing a therapist without them judging me. That's ridiculous. Right? In its most basic sense, that's ridiculous. And that's the environment that we have. So it needs to change so that people can not suffer.
Well, I liked our first show better. I'm kidding. Give us some websites. Where can people go to learn more? Or you mentioned that, the nonprofit.
Yeah. Oh, so One Mind is just a fantastic organization. I believe it's onemind.org. And then pulverizethestigma.com is my site that I'm doing right now, just to double middle finger the vast majority of society out there to change our thought process so that we can make people suffer less and not die. And so that's the main goal there.
There you go. Jen, great to see you. John Nelson, returning champion. Thank you so much for coming on Out of Patience.
Much respect.
All right, we'll see you next time, folks. Bye-bye.
Out of Patience with Matthew Zachary is a production of Matthew Zachary Worldwide. The executive producer is Matthew Zachary. It is mixed and edited by Kyle Moore. If you like the show, ratings and reviews are always welcome wherever you get your podcasts. If you have guest suggestions or would like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, email podcast@matthewzachary.com. For more information about Matthew Zachary and Matthew Zachary Worldwide, visit matthewzachary.com.